Honestly, if we had a few less levels on Sabrina, she probably would have died there. Welcome back to Extra Holiday Games. I'm Extra Holiday, and yeah, this episode's a day late, but don't worry about it. You'll get another episode of this tomorrow. But yeah, I went over to my parents' place last weekend, and they were like, "Oh yeah, come over. There's some snow on the ground, but it'll be gone by the time you need to leave." And then we got like 6 more inches of snow overnight, and I was like, "Oh, I can't get out of our road because yeah, my parents live about a mile down a dirt road, so it doesn't exactly get plowed unless someone who lives on the road, usually my dad, plows it, and that takes several hours. So yeah, it was a little unfortunate because I had planned, right, because they wanted me to spend the night so I could watch the dog while they went out of town, and which, you know, I'd done once before recently. It's not really a big deal to me most of the time, but yeah, so they did that. They went out of town, they got back, and they didn't have trouble getting back because even with the snow, because, you know, they both drive trucks, pickup trucks. So snow is like, well, they had a little bit of trouble getting in and out, but certainly not as much as I would have if I tried to get my little car up those steep hills that were entirely unpaved and covered with slush. Yeah, it wasn't gonna work. So I had to make the call and be like, yeah, you know what, it's probably safer for me to just stay here. I can't afford a new car right now, so yeah, I'm just gonna not try to overextend myself, you know? And so that's, long story short, that's why this episode's coming out a day late, because yeah, didn't expect to get snowed in. The point I was trying to make is that I had prepared for, I had prepared it, edited an episode in advance. Oh wait, can't do that. Nope, don't auto battle. Not allowed. I had edited an episode in advance in expectation that, you know, I wasn't going to be here to edit that episode. But yeah, because I got snowed in and had to spend an extra day, that wasn't enough, unfortunately. I will say I do like Koraidon's wings better than Miraidon's. Like, overall, I think I like Miraidon's design better, but I think I like, as far as the wings specifically go, I think I like Koraidon's better. There we go. They actually look feathery, and I get why Miraidons aren't feathery, but he's basically a robot. Yeah, neat little design. Yeah. So that was my excitement for the week. It was unfortunate because the snow had melted enough by the time I was up that, like, maybe I could get out of there with my car, maybe. But it would have been risky, you know. Like I said, I can't really afford a new car right now. So if something had happened and I did, you know, let's say I slid off the road, ruined my vehicle, then not only then I'd still be stuck there, and I would also be, out, a couple $1,000 at least. So, yeah. I think personally that's the right call. Oh, and I should say, I'm talking about all this happening last weekend. You're like, oh, what are you talking about last weekend? It's Friday. It's like, well, yes, but because I spent 2 nights there instead of 1, it really, really screwed up my sleep schedule. Because normally I sleep during the day and am up at night, largely because nighttime is when I can record without, oh, okay, can't actually go there. Got it. Does that put us back out the west gate? I think it does. Again, nighttime is when I can record without actually disturbing anyone in this current house that I'm living in. That's thanks largely to the fact that I'm recording downstairs while the other residents of this house sleep upstairs. And also, they're pretty heavy sleepers. So that's my normal schedule, but when I'm at my parents' place, I want to socialize with my parents for the most part. And that requires me being up in the day because they are mostly up during the day. My dad works night shifts, but he still tries to be up during the day, particularly on his days off. So that seems weird to me. Because I worked back before I was on leave. I worked graveyard shifts as well. But I never had the illusion that like, oh, I'm gonna work graveyards and then I'm going to, on the weekends I'll be up during the day because, that'll be, and I can do things and stuff. Most of what I would want to do, I can do at night generally. So having to switch my sleep schedule back and forth sounded like a bad thing. It didn't sound feasible to me. And considering how much trouble I've had in this past week getting back into my sleep schedule that I had, maybe you can see why. Because yeah, I'm just not great. I mean, a large part of the problem is that I don't use an alarm if I don't really have to. And that's kind of just me being stubborn. I just really don't like waking up to an alarm. If I have to, if I actually have some sort of commitment, I have to be somewhere at a certain time, then I will set an alarm and wake up then. And I'm actually pretty good at waking up relatively quickly. Like, I don't hit snooze or anything when I do set an alarm, but I try to avoid it generally because it's just unpleasant. I wouldn't be surprised to learn that studies show that actually waking up to an alarm is bad for you. Because that feels like one of those things. It's like, that we forced on ourselves because of society. We do live in one of those. Yeah, I think that's what took me 10 minutes, but that's why this episode is a day late, because going back to a night owl schedule after a couple days being up during the day it's tough. It's tough. To be even more specific, last night when I meant to record, I meant to lay down at, about 10:30 p.m. and I was like, okay, I'll take like an hour nap, right? Because I do that frequently. I take a lot of naps, just because I get real tired during the day. Well, quote unquote day, depending on when I'm actually up, but I get real tired. So I tend to take naps, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to take just an hour nap. And then I slept for 8 hours. Yeah. Yeah. By the time I woke up, it was daytime, and I was like, yeah, nope, can't really record now, can I? It's unfortunate. Yeah. But hey, there was still Gravity Rush yesterday, because that was already recorded. So, and well, I'm trying to, yeah, okay, yesterday's episode was the episode where we started, I guess, minor spoiler for tomorrow's episode of Gravity Rush. We started fighting the final boss in yesterday's episode of Gravity Rush. Oh boy, is that a interesting boss. There's a bit to it. But that's for that series. This series, however, is Pokemon. And I think what we're doing right here is we're cleaning up this beach area and this land. There's this little, I guess it's an island, technically. Because, I mean, if you look at this formation, it's either an island or a peninsula, something like that. I mean, I'd call this a peninsula more, but yeah, I guess this is technically an island. So we're cleaning up this island because I don't think we did that. Yeah, because there are still trainers that we haven't fought. We're going to save that one for last because it's a mighty trainer. I don't remember what that kid had, but that's what's on the docket for this episode, is just cleaning up this area, because the next thing we're going to do is not Iono's gym, though we could certainly do that. It is the Earth Titan. So we've got this area to, just pick up the items in. And then we've got the next area, which is, I forget the number, but it's the area that the Earth Titan's in, the area with all the mines. It's interesting, right? Because they don't, I guess it's kind of always been this way with Pokemon, where each area doesn't necessarily have a specific name aside from a route number X, aside from towns and the general exceptions of like caves and stuff. And this game, I guess, is following that, but it's a little different because you've got like the, what do they call it? We zoom out a little bit. Yeah, you got the different provinces and then the areas within those provinces. So, yeah, we're in East 2 right now, I think. And there's also like South 2 and West 2, I think. It's interesting how they chose to handle naming the areas. Yep. That was actually one of the reasons why I didn't want to do a standard Nuzlocke in this game. Well, it's related to that. Just the fact that it's mostly the fact that you can actually see the Pokemon in the wild and run into them. It makes it a little bit harder, and also the areas aren't as clearly defined. So yeah, the fact that you can see Pokemon and just run into them means that the first sight rule of a Nuzlocke is like the first encounter rule. You could still technically work it, but it gets a lot easier when you can pick what your first encounter is. Right? And in the last game, in Sword and Shield, I modified it so that it's like, oh, it's the first thing I see, but that's totally an honor system, right? There's room for ambiguity there, and it's not the fun kind of ambiguity, it's the uncomfortable kind. So that's why this game I was like, I don't really want to do. I mean, there was also the reason of a Nuzlocke is generally going to be a slower playthrough than a casual playthrough, or even a different type of challenge run. Well, it depends on the type, but it's generally slower than a casual playthrough. So that's always like, okay, yeah, I don't really want to do a regular old Nuzlocke. Plus, you know, everyone and their mother has done a Nuzlocke at this point. So I am, if nothing else, someone who does not like doing the same thing as others, said the man who started a Let's Play channel in 2019. We're just going to ignore that fact. Yeah, that was one of the reasons. And then, of course, yeah, the other reason was that I just, it's hard to define. I've seen so far I've only watched one person try to Nuzlocke Scarlet and Violet. And I haven't watched the whole thing, of course, because I'm trying not to watch further than I've gotten in the game. Which is also really weird with these games because people do things in different orders, so. And in the one person that I've seen attempt to Nuzlocke this game, they were a bit more loose in defining the areas than I would have been. There is the old-fashioned rule of, you know, whatever it says in the summary about where you caught it. Which, does it show in here? South Province 4, yeah, okay. So that works, but that you can only do after the fact, right? After you've caught it, you can only check. That you can't check beforehand. And especially with Scarlet and Violet, they don't have... In the older games, they used to have like little title cards that came down when you entered a new area. They don't have that in this game. So it makes it just makes Nuzlocking harder in this game. And that's not, I don't think that was like an intentional move from Game Freak or anything. I think that's just because they were like, well, we just want the world to seem more organic, which, you know, I understand. That seems like a fairly decent goal. But yeah, it means you kind of have to get a little more creative with your challenges, IMO. Which I'm not trying to say that the Scoutlocke is better or anything than a Nuzlocke, but what I am saying is that it's different. So I did have a thought, because it was in Violet that I mentioned it. There is also the Professor Oak challenge, which is kind of like the opposite of a Nuzlocke, really, where you try to catch every Pokemon you can. And try to fill out the Pokedex as much as you can before you challenge the next gym, in most cases. And that would be a nightmare in this game. But I did think of I did think there is a possibility of using the Scoutlocke idea to combine a Professor Oak challenge with a Nuzlocke, where one player is doing the Professor Oak challenge, or one game is being played via Professor Oak challenge, and the other one's being played as a Nuzlocke. And that could be interesting. That would mean, depending on the game, that would mean a lot more time investment for one player than the other. But it could be interesting. And hopefully things will be interesting next time. Because as for this episode, that's a wrap. Did I even mention what was going on in the game once?